Hello, everybody. Welcome. So, it's been a minute. Good to be here. Not going to have a super long show today. Just wanted to, it's July. It's hot. It's that awful heat where we're telling ourselves it's okay because this means college football is 7-ish weeks away, and there's no guarantee that that's going to happen at all. So basically today, I just kind of wanted to go over some facts and stats, and then kind of my thoughts and hunch on that we're going to play. Now look, nothing I'm going to say is from a medical standpoint, should we be playing? Like that's not my thing. I'll leave that to other folks. Mine is more going to look at this from a money standpoint, which is, again, somewhat crass and wrong, but it tends to be the thing that drives a lot of decisions. So a lot of the numbers that you're going to hear, and just nerd out with me for a second, I just want to roll through them fairly quickly. I don't want to dwell on them. Mark Schlabach and Paul Levine did a great article on ESPN.com. You can check it out, but I've just kind of pulled out some nuggets. So here we go. And again, I'm positing for you. That's a fun word. It's like a 50-cent word. I'm positing for you that I think it's going to happen. I think there's so much money at stake. And as we'll mention also, there's a force majeure clause with the media, which basically says if there's an act of God, they don't have to pay if they cancel because of that. So should be interesting. So here's some general numbers. The amount of money lost if the football season is canceled. Again, one more time, I just feel the need to say I'm not making an argument why this is absolutely what should be done. This is me trying to explain why I think this is what is going to happen. $4 billion will be lost in total if the 2020 football season isn't played. $1.2 billion of that is ticket revenue. Ticket prices have been going up for most of us, certainly in the SEC every year, but even I didn't quite grasp the total amount of money that is just ticket revenue. So $1.2 billion. Each Power 5 school, each school would see at least an average of loss of $62 million in football revenue. Now that's more than just the ticket gate, including at least $8.6 million in football ticket sales. So far, we're already seeing some shutdowns. Cincinnati dropped men's soccer, Old Dominion wrestling, Furman shut down baseball, lacrosse, and so on. It's Central Michigan, terminated track and field, and it goes on and on. You're already seeing the early effects because for most of these schools, even the schools you wouldn't think about, Cincinnati, I guess they've been to a BCS game. Didn't they get throttled by Florida in one game, I think? But even a university like Cincinnati, who actually has a pretty prominent basketball program a lot of years, the football is the golden goose. And for them to already be cutting programs, and this article is about 3 weeks old, maybe even a month. I should have gotten on here sooner, whatever. Been busy, folks. A lot of sitting. More than 20 FBS athletic departments, including Arizona, a few names you'll have heard of, Colorado, Kansas, Louisville, Minnesota, USC, West, and Washington State, have announced voluntary pay cuts and or mandatory furloughs. So you're already seeing effects on the coaching staff. Public school Power 5 athletic departments, here's another fun stat, on average made nearly half of their total operating revenue from football, with about 14% just coming from the ticket sales. Again, and this is something I should have. I don't know. You would think paying attention to college football for 30-something years, I would have got the memo. But I think, at least in my head, I've had this idea that TV rights and the media contracts that they've negotiated, ESPN, you saw the big deal they made to steal away the CBS games, that just sort of covered it. And that maybe they could play the games with no fans. I'm very wrong. At least my initial thoughts were wildly wrong on that. Now, of course, you do have to recognize the devastating impact that has to the local communities. restaurants, bars, hotels. But still, I didn't quite grasp just how big ticket sales were, because you don't always see packed houses when you're flipping through. But yeah. Anywhere, this is a quote from Oregon State Athletics Director Scott Barnes, anywhere from 75 up to almost 85% of all revenues to our departments are derived directly or indirectly from football. Sponsorship dollars, multimedia rights, and then you've got your gate, your donations, and whatnot. So, would you like to guess the percentage of Power 5 athletic departments that were self-sustaining? And these are 2018 numbers. Half. Just half. All those billions and billions of dollars and only half. Meaning revenue covered expenses without funding from student fees or university support. Take away football ticket revenue up, and that leaves you with just Georgia and Texas A&M. So you got 50% are self-sustaining. You take away the football revenue, and you have 2 schools, according to this report, that are then self-sustaining. Two out of the Power 5. Power 5 schools would collectively lose, so the big boys would lose $303 million in revenue on game day spending. That's your hotels, your bars, your restaurants. $303 million. And so Power 5, oh gosh, I should have looked this up. Power 5 schools, there are, come on Google, do it for me. No, 5. All right, I'm gonna say an average of 12. We're talking about 60 schools. About 60 schools. You spread that out. You really shouldn't spread that out evenly at $303 million. I mean, I'm sure. I don't know. I've never been to Oregon State out there at Corvallis. I've never been to Corvallis. I don't know if the scene is what it's like in Knoxville or Baton Rouge or Ann Arbor. So I wouldn't say that $303 million would affect everybody evenly. But still, that's a massive amount of money if you spread that out. All right, you know what? Let's be silly and let's just say $303 million divided by 60. Just do that. So you look. I should have been able to do that in my head. Grad school guys. It's about $5 million a community. That's a lot of money, and it won't be spread evenly like that either. So I talked about the force majeure. So media rights contracts with college conferences and professional leagues include force majeure. I like saying that. Force majeure clauses that may provide replacement games or other remedies for media companies. And do a little research, and those remedies are just, we're not paying. And I don't think they're going to pay full boat for watching, let's broadcast the 98 Florida Tennessee game. And, or 90, I guess technically the 97, but 98 championship season, So a few things I want to talk about. So one thing we're already seeing. So the Big Ten has announced that they're just going to do home games. No, wrong. They're just going to do conference games. Excuse me. They're just going to do conference games. Now the big shiny thing you're going to notice is that cancels Ohio State, Oregon, and Michigan, Washington for this coming year, which sucks because those were going to be pretty huge games, obviously. Well, you never know with Washington, but Oregon was expected, I think, to have a decent year again. But that's not really, that's the shiny thing. Here's the kicker. The main reason they're canceling these games is because they're not going to have the money to pay the cupcake fee. So you're not going to pay Akron if you're Ohio State. And, maybe that's a bad example because they're in-state. Maybe they have some – I know there's some states that legislate the big boy playing the underdog for financial purposes. So let me say Akron's playing Penn State. If you're Penn State and you're worried you're going to be cutting other programs, one way you can save money is just cut the cupcake game. I'd love to see some numbers that compare how much they make at gate versus how much they pay out. Because you might say, well, they're going to lose more than they're going to save. What I imagine you're going to see is an extended conference schedule. because that allows them to keep that gate and then also not have to pay out that cupcake money. So we'll see. So again, though, another sort of indirect result of COVID, you're going to see the gap between the Power Five and everybody else that's already a Grand Canyon. It's going to turn into some kind of Martian mountain range valley because, it's really going to hurt them. They don't love just showing up getting their asses kicked most of the time. They do it for the money, obviously. And so, and you got to understand, too, they're coming from conferences that don't have they don't have the same sort of TV contracts. So they're not getting payouts. Then if you combine the fact that where they do get some money, some of these smaller, or I shouldn't say smaller necessarily, some of these schools have pretty large enrollments. But if you look at a school like MTSU, when they make it in the tournament, they get some money. They get some TV money from the NCAA tournament. Well, guess what we didn't have this year? As we all know, as we're sitting around in March, staring at nothingness. So I think you're going to see an expanded conference schedule. And again, when you hear that they're not going to do at non-conference games, please don't have the impression that they're trying to shorten the season to do the thing to further minimize risk, have fewer opportunities for exposure and all that. And I guess there's a 1% chance I could be wrong on this. Again, I'll be very surprised if you don't see an expanded conference schedule. So, just to be highly cynical, it's the right financial move. Absolutely, you cut a cost and you increase your revenue in a time where, in these uncertain times, geez, if I hear somebody say uncertain times, this is often. If I hear somebody say uncertain times one more time, I'm glad I've got the extra TV. Because I'm gonna blow a hole in the other one. Anyway, so another thing I want to talk about that's going to be interesting. Let me address it. Transfers. So let's say you are Doug Wilson at Stanford. You're a sophomore. You're about to be a junior. You were a first team All Pac-12. You're projected to be potential All-American, blah, blah, blah. What if you're in a conference or even a school that decides because of where they are, they just can't play the games? They're just not going to do it. But you know that Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin need a safety, and they call you. Now, are they going to relax the transfer rules? Seems like a pretty good reason to do it. If they do, you see a whole conference cancel. I think the Big Ten, the SEC, and the Big 12 are playing football next year. I don't know about the ACC. They're like vanilla ice cream. I don't really have a good feel for them, and they are very diverse. We're not getting into politics here, but an interesting thing about the ACC is they've got schools, and they're so spread. They run the gamut of whatever, blue state, red state, whatever you want to call it. There's more certainty in the Big Ten, certainly in the Big 12 and the SEC. Let's say California continues to have the issues that it's having, and they cancel, and that's. So even if you're the Pac-12, how do you play without Cal, UCLA, and USC? I don't know how you do that. So, Stanford. I just brought them up. So what do you do in four schools? They may just not play. So is the NCAA prepared to tell a college student athlete that no, we're going to need you to sit out? Like, my school's not playing football. Why? Yeah. So watch for that. That's going to be interesting. And if they deny it, I hope someone with some money, like a family with some money, can afford an attorney to press that issue, because I think that's a load of shit. Next, I have a note here that I wonder about the force majeure clause in coaches' contracts. So, some of these coaches you're already seeing, I mentioned earlier furloughs, and I'm not really talking about, I doubt that the assistant lacrosse coach at Furman has a lot of weight to throw around. But if, let's see, I wonder who Oregon's offensive line coach. Are they going to be able to, if they cancel the games, are they going to be able to pay? If they can't pay, are they going to say force majeure? Sorry. If they can't play, will they say we can't pay? Will coaches start suing for breach of contract? Like, we didn't see it as much with March Madness. I think it was one of those things where everybody was like, oh, this is, not that it's not just as bad because our numbers are still terrible, but it was a new, quick thing. Nobody really had a lot of time to think like, yes, cancel, absolutely. And you'll see this too when college basketball is supposed to start back up. Are they going to honor the contracts? Are there things in the contracts that might give them a chance to have an out? If you're a school, do you even want to mess around with that? I imagine at least 40% of teams probably don't want to piss off their head basketball or football coaches, so they don't want to screw around with their staff or even them. So that's good. That's going to be wild. One last thing that I'll leave you on is the idea of why don't college teams, why can't they survive this? Why is it, what did we say? Something about 50%, yada, yada, yada. Half the teams are self-sustaining. Why don't they have coffers? Well, so Ryan Russillo over on The Ringer has talked pretty intelligently about this. So college athletics basically eats and shits. So revenue goes up, spending goes up. Revenue goes up, 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 spending up, 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 up. They will always find a new way to spend that money. There's one cynical look at it is, as long as they keep spending money, they can continue to make the argument, we don't have it, we can't pay the players. And that's because you're not, some of these schools have rainy day funds, but a lot of those comes from donors. And not through revenue derived from the actual, the playing of sports. So you can say, well, if John Willie Willingham, oil baron from Lubbock, gives the school $50 million, well, we can't use that to pay players because that's a donation and whatever. That's a little bit easier to make than, no, we're making $30 million a weekend at the gate. We can't pay the players that money. Why? Because they're already getting an education. I get it. We're not doing that. We're not going to do that here. But one reason that I've heard argued they spend that money so fast is so that they don't have anything that argument can be made. But let's say that's really cynical. Facilities. I mean, every time you turn around, every season you read that 3 SEC schools are renovating their locker rooms for $30 million, or they're renovating their stadium for $80 million, and it goes same for the Big Ten and most of the Big 12 schools, and God knows that's a fortress they have over at Eugene, Oregon. So they're like that kid, when you got your first job out of college, and it's just like, bar. We're going to the bar this weekend. I got you. Drinks, boom. Oh, I need a new TV. Of course I need a TV. This recliner is not very comfortable. I need the one with it's got the heat in it. It's that one for $400 has speakers built in. I mean, yeah, I'm going to do that. So that's kind of how these college departments are. And again, Ryan Russillo at The Ringer's talked about this a lot. They just spend. So they can't take this hit. Which, again, is yet another reason why, for good or bad of the health of the nation, I think we're going to have games, and I think the stadiums that allow it are going to be packed. What are you going to do? How are you going to... I have a friend that got a notification from Michigan, a season ticket holder. They're looking at allowing season ticket holders, basically splitting the season in two in terms of which games you can come to. But, boy, who gets up? I don't know if Ohio State's a home game or not this year, but let's say it is. Who decides who gets that? If you're Tennessee, who gets Alabama? Who gets Florida? Which I would argue, actually, we played them kind of tough last year. So I don't see how they don't play. Now, to me, the biggest deterrent is if they go for this and kids start getting sick, and they already are. Forgive me, I should have already had this up, but I believe at Alabama, they had several players already test positive for COVID. And then I think at Clemson, they've already had some as well. Yeah, report June 11th, 3 more Alabama, this is Sports Illustrated, players test positive. And again, yeah, I know young people, let's not overdo it though. Let's not act like young people are just supermen and like, oh, they're fine, they get it, and they cough once and they're fine. Like, we still don't know the long-term effects of this disease. So you still don't want it. You don't want to get it. So yeah, that's at least 5 during their first round of testing alone. Are the schools opening themselves up to a lawsuit? With a fan, you could get them to, you could get everybody back in the stadium to sign a waiver. But I don't think you can get. I don't think it's going to fly. I mean, waivers are already tricky in court to enforce anyway. And then I don't think you're. What are you saying to a college student's family, a student athlete, if you're like, we're going to play, but we need you to sign this to say if you get sick and or die, you're not going to sue us? I don't know. I know what a lot of you are thinking, and I'm thinking it too, that at least at the Power 5 schools, 90% of those kids, 95% of those kids are going to sign that thing faster than you can blink. So we'll see. Anyway, that's all I got. I think we're going to have a college football season. Again, I am not saying that is a good thing medically. I'm saying based on these numbers and also based on the desire of the parties involved. I mean, these college football players, they want to play college football. And when you combine that with when you're young, you think you're immortal. And these guys are already on another level. I mean, half of them already look like Greek gods. So it'll be interesting. All right. Thanks, everybody. We should have another show soon. I want to talk about, I've just been gobbling up content during the quarantine. So I've watched a lot of the Apple Plus shows over the last couple months, and I want to talk about it. I think it'll be fun. I'm going to peace. Milkshake Twitter. Bye.